Welcome back to the desk, everyone, as Gio unlocks the first match point of this series after, yet again, really messy game. It was clean until it was not. That's how I would say.
But if we focus on the positives first,
It is
then in
positive, come on.
isolation, this looked really good from Gio.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, we were talking about it behind the scenes as well, in the green room as well, but everything just seems like it's bot lane, okay? There's some mid laners, they exist. There's some top laners, they exist. The junglers, if they're down towards the bot lane, great, because both games, of all games so far in the series so far, has just been about who can get that bot lane ahead, who can get the game going through the Drakes, through the bot lane, for everywhere we rotate the bot lane, the team fights through the bot lane. It's just bot lane, bot lane, bot lane.
I mean, yeah, the solo laner being like kind of props, I want to say, in this series, but also when it comes to grabbing the advantage, here again, I feel like Gio has the upper hand here, Dagda.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, look, we saw a couple of missteps, but overall, I think Go were significantly cleaner.
Yeah.
But I think the main kind of standouts for me were, although we're kind of talking about them being props, I think Cabochard had significantly less of an impact this game than he did in the previous two. And I think that was a case of not being able to get onto the back line because you've got Linkus who's able to do some competing with the Sejuani. Same you look at the Nautilus, the Leon as well. It felt like there were a lot of answers for Cabochard. And then as well, like this Zeri falling very, very far behind. But even just miscoordination in team fights between specifically the Nautilus and the rest of follow-up. Like when Jesu's this far ahead, your point-and-click CC is your go-to. Like you need this to be your go button onto the Vayne. And there's a couple of times where that ultimate would hit, the depth charge would hit onto Jesu, but there was just zero follow-up. I think that was kind of the biggest problem that you saw from a lot of this from Karmine Corp. Jesu was massive, but nobody could just deal with them in the background.
But how crazy is it, despite how far ahead the Geo was, they had Ocean Soul, they had the Elder Drake, they had the Baron, and still they were the one getting chased out of Karmine Corp's base when they tried to siege. This game was really difficult for them. They had every single tool they needed to close it out, and it was still a bit messy towards the end. Even the ending fight we just saw now, if you don't have Ocean Soul, Jesu dies, Kalish just pops off on this area as well. It's really small micros that really just happened in these fights that matters, and Jesu being ahead of the Vayne really played it out well. The Vayne pick seemed like a big risk, but it paid off for him.
I actually wanted to talk about this Vayne pick because we know that it's a signature pick for Jesu. He's been playing the champion in the LEC usually when he wants to flex a bit. I want to say he's going to be like, okay, guys, it's time for Vayne. Into Nautilus, that's not something I would do though, and especially against this Karmine Corp composition. But how do you explain it, and how valuable was it later on?
How do you explain it?
I think Vayne can have its moments, right?
Yeah.
Especially into, like, we think, consider it's an old school counter pick to things like the Kais and stuff like that, which is why I think people have started to practice a little bit more. Obviously, it's been there for Jesu. I wouldn't traditionally put it into, as you say, something like the Nautilus, even the Zeri, because in a lot of situations, that should be a 1-2 combo, especially when you hit 6, where you just decimate the Vayne. We even saw it where they tried to go for that terror dive on the bottom side of the map and got absolutely rinsed. And that is traditionally how you should see that matchup go. But I think the fact you end up with Jesu having these 2 kills early, gets the static shiv, then becomes significantly easier to survive the laning phase and then get to a point where you're just so massive. But again, I think like Jesu was just untouched in a lot of these fights, like Cabo trying to get onto him in the back line, but he was leaping into CC across the board. Same when you look across the Nautilus, like I think you were kind of hoping for Nautilus into Cabochard, maybe even into Seiken going in with a shuffle, but there was just nothing to follow up onto Jesu, especially when he was this far ahead.
Yeah, it was risky into the Jax as well.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a tank you were playing it into. You're playing it into a guy with a counter-strike. If that's a lockdown that comes through with the AC on top of you with a shuffle, like there was a lot of tools that could have made this game difficult. It still was a bit, but once again, since he snowballed and made it work, there's nothing to criticize in that regard, but it also just comes back to how much of a comfort pick it really is for him, because it takes a lot to be in this situation and say, I want to pick Vayne here. Vayne is a great champion. Let's play it out. And it worked out for him.
Channeling the caps here until I don't have to go.
In a more reasonable role. But yes.
But I also thought like some of the sick things that we saw, like tiny little micro things, was how the bushes from Ivern were used to try and protect the Vayne, right? Like you'd see it thrown down in a team fight, and like at times Jesu had the Nautilus ult on and was tumbling into or even far further forward because it was like, oh well, I can get to the bush and then I can't be leaped on by Cabochard, or the point and click auto attack attacks or whatever can't come through, right? So I think there was a huge amount of that as well. So there was a lot of protection for him. So even though you kind of think, oh, it's a Jax, it's an Nautilus, there was just so much there to keep him safe. It was absolutely insane.
And I actually think to come back to GB's point from earlier, the fact that Karmine Corp was able to stay in the game for so long, even though it looked like a stomp at some point, I want to appreciate what they've been doing so far. Even though I feel they're not playing to the expectations I had coming from this team, and Gio is overperforming, I would say, compared to what we've seen in the LFL. But yet again, to me, Karmine is not done. And we see it during games like this.
Yeah, I think, first off, I think it's a very fair statement regarding Geo in terms of what we saw from the LFL. But I also think you're very right in regards to Karmine Corp. Overperforming absolutely on Geo's side, but I also think Linkers is having an absolute mega series on his point, and he's been absolutely outperforming Syncroft even in their losses too. So I think it's really on Syncroft as well to try and bridge that gap that's happening right now, and specifically once again towards that bot side and being first on the skirmishes here, because if you can do that and go even, because to me, Karmine Corp don't even need to win the early game. They just need to be even, and at that point, they're in a pretty good stage going into the mid to late game with how they've been performing their team fights.
But I think that's kind of the biggest disappointment for me coming into this game was like looking at the jungle support for Karmine Corp, right? I was expecting Syncroft and Targamas to take over in that matchup and then go, right, we're going to take over in the early stages. And it feels like Targamas just hasn't really been in a position all series, honestly, to step up on things like the Nautilus. Plenty of these hooks have gone wide when it's a very big CCR even skill shot. Like it feels like he's kind of messing up, which means that Syncroft isn't really having a great day either. And that like synergy that was such a core to Karmine Corp, even not just this split, but like in previous splits when we saw these two playing together as well, and it just seems to have completely gone out the window.
I mean, that's the crazy thing about K-Corp is the fact that they're back. The expectations towards this structure and lineup are immense because of what they've been able to do in the past. And on the other side, you have Targamas who wants to bounce back after the difficult year he had with Excel, shining with K-Corp once again. I feel like Syncroft has things to prove as well. And you gotta wonder how much it means for this player to be potentially able to play in their home country next week, and how much it weighs in the way they're playing today and the nerves involved here.
Absolutely. I'm hoping they're the kind of players where nerves will be a benefit to them and they feel even more fired up when this comes down with back against the walls too. But I also think that on the side of Geo, it's not just Targamas and Syncroft that wants back. You know, you still see Jesu. You have players like Taku. You have Ragnar that wants to prove themselves to really prove that they deserve to be in the LEC as well. And making that step would be absolutely monumental. Not even just for Geo, because you know they weren't even second seed coming into them. It would just be huge for the organization, the players as well, if they're able to take this game 3 and actually make it to the EMEA Masters final.
First ever finals.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It feels like they're on the right track for that to happen, right? I think coming back into this, taking away the Renekton worked out fantastically for Ragnar. Cabo Shard looked like a shadow of what we saw in Game 1 and Game 2. And having much more control over that jungle matchup with the Sejuani as well. Like, yes, Link has had a fantastic performance on the Viego, but I do think stepping it back and going, hey, as long as I can tank and provide a front line for Jesu, we're in a great little spot. And I think now that we're starting to see Jesu kind of flex his muscles a little bit in the bot lane as well, I mean, as long as you can try and keep that safety, I think you're in a good spot, because realistically, it's been the overextensions at like Barons and team fights that have actually come back to bite Team Geo. So as long as you're able to keep that under control with an easier front to back operation, I think that's the best way to go for it.
Yeah, but I also think it brings us to a draft point here, and that of course is Karmine Corp on blue side.
Yeah.
I think it's on Geo now to actually adapt some of the bans and take away the rail instead. Make sure they actually don't get it as a first pick. Karmine Corp made the adaptation themselves in this one. They gave LeBlanc over, but it really wasn't the same kind of problem that rail would have been in the jungle if that was the case, or just to flex alive. It really is that versatility you get on blue side. They can wait all the way down to 5th, or even try and force a last pick support, and you can't even do that. The hard thing with the rail first pick is that you'll first pick rail. If you go into the second ban phase and they haven't picked Alistar yet, you'll just ban it, and then boom, best counter out the window. And if not, then they have picked Alistar, and then you just flex it into the jungle and you get counter pick. It's such a good first pick. It brings so much to the draft and to the gameplay itself that I think it just has to be going on the red side ban.
What do you see? What do you read on the draft?
I mean,
if you had
I
anything
100%
else
agree
to-
with this. I think that's your best way to go about it. But also, like, I wouldn't mind seeing even things like the Alistar, maybe even Luxart to ban it, because I think we've seen some really cool combos with like Nico in the mid lane and stuff. But if you could even eye up like a Nico Alistar, I know over in the LCK they're a big fan of this, but Alistar kind of causes issues for that as well. So maybe it is options where we actually start to see a very wide array of bans being changed up versus the last couple of games, because I think this is where you just have to throw everything at the kitchen sink as well.
Yeah.
As Karmine Corp, like there's nothing left to hide. You need to win this game, and let's be fair, you haven't looked like the dominant force here today.
And that's the thing, Geo feels more comfortable so far and seems to have more options to play with, whereas K-Corp feels, I feel like they have to innovate, but also come back to what made them successful. I think it's going to be the key here. But we'll see. We will see this in-game for right now. Back to casters. Take it away.
Blah, 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 blah,
Thank you very much.
My French
Actually,
goes
well,
away
thank
here.
you. I don't speak French, so Law's going to make me pay for that one later, I think. That was probably a mistake. But hey,
This is a French series,
I'm
buddy.
in trouble. I am in so much trouble. But perhaps it will be worth it if we get another banger like we've had the last few games. And Karmine Corp backs against the wall, but back on the blue side. And honestly, I really want to hit on what Goldborg was saying there, and Dagda was saying, look, let's see some adaptation in those bans, because you were sort of saying, look, I think you just leave the Azir and LeBlanc open, just get rid of the Rel. You don't want to give that
mid
over.
lane was a non-factor last game, right? It didn't come to Tukui being unlocked on the map on the LeBlanc. It didn't come to the team fights forsaken on his Azir to shine. When Geo wins, it's through pure bot lane domination in the early 2v2. And I'll agree with the desk.
Yeah.
They did say Targamas, Synchrof, they're not having the best
They've
day.
been pretty
They're not extremely active on the map, and that's what brought a lot of the success of the OG K-Corp.
Yeah, and I think there's also to be said for that Karmine Corp have come away from a lot of early games across this tournament, less so this series, with pretty big leads because they just lane well. And that's hard to do against a team with the caliber of laners that Geo has. You look at the likes of Ragnar, of Takui, of Jezu, and you go, well, that's pretty stiff competition in terms of the hands. We've had some more issues, perhaps some of the thoughts in the extended team fights, but the hands themselves, we're not really in doubt of here.
Absolutely. I mean, we said the communication might be lacking, but these guys have not forgotten how to play League of Legends. They were in the LEC.
Just fine,
They were in the
exactly.
LEC. They were in the LCS. Even if the communication is lacking later on the 5 versus 5s, when it comes down to laning phase and just pure skill check, I'm sorry, but Geo has come on top in this particular series. Again, I'm looking at that bottom because I'm like, Kalist, he's an absolute monster, but you need to get him out of that laning phase. And with Targamas and Synchrof not performing to our standards, what we've seen them succeed with in this team, it becomes a little bit difficult for Kalist to also be unlocked later on in this team fights. Now, of course, if Geo want to break this series, they need to win on that red side. But even if they lose here, I'm assuming they can still choose to go on blue side for game number 5. But right here, you establish your dominance. You win on red side, you beat the raid boss, you go to Montpellier.
Just been looking over your notes to see some of the bans, particularly from Game 2, where Karmine Corp was on blue side, and that's the exact same bans for them. The only change from Geo when they were last on red side is a Nico in place of the Azir. Rel first pick. Response from Geo, though, is the Talia, and they're saying, okay, well, you don't have the Nico this time. What are you going to do? Is this going to be the Zeri pick here?
The Azir is still open, right? And it becomes a problem for a Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa's extremely short range, but the way that Tukui played the Kai'Sa in this particular game, because they had the Viego in the jungle that popped off, was AP poke Kai'Sa, which means versus an Azir, it's still a matter of a problem because you're poking away. And I think something that we've been talking about a little bit is the fact that Synchro has not necessarily looked good on things that are not Maokai Satuani. He hasn't been able to take them in his hands this particular series. Now, oh my
It's
god!
time. It's time.
You know what that means? This is backs against the wall for KC. The legendary Seiken Rise is
Blue champ,
coming
blue wall.
out. Blue wall, blue champ, locked in. The reply from the side of Geo is, of course, more front to back. You've got the Sejuani, you've got on to non-committal engage champions. You've got the Talia. Tukui has been doing fantastically on this champion. They lost the game where Tukui was on the Talia, but he looked absolutely phenomenal. And now, when we're looking down to sort of taking away a lot of the AD carries, Jesu's champion pool on the bot side is extremely huge. Vayne being one of these champions that is looked at.
From the other side, there's a few of these spicy pocket picks being taken out. I'm just aware there's a world where you end up with a Samira Rel. I doubt it into this comp, but that's a combo which I saw a concerning amount of when I was covering some of the LPL, LDL stuff. Like, the amount of times that combo came out later on into a series was pretty scary. I doubt we see it here, but you never know.
I'm wondering if Kalist and Targamas are going to pull out a Nila Senna again.
I wonder about
on the bot
that.
lane.
That's fair.
I want to see what Geo is going to come up with, because Jezu is also an incredible Ezreal player. So right here, you can lock something like an Ezreal, and you're pretty much... You cannot be locked down from anything like a Rise or a Renekton. They cannot reach you over in the backline. But that means that you're suffering a little bit in the department of consistent damage.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think there's always, something to be called out that actually, look, Jezu does have a few of those pocket picks that are a little bit out of meta, and the fact that you do have the Ezreal, the Kalista, the Kai'Sa is something he's obviously very famous for that's not out of meta, and it is locked in.
You know what? Kai'Sa is a very short range AD carry.
With the exception of
Nila and Senna can keep her in check over in the bot lane. Kalista and Tagama showcased how good they were on this combo. We talked about if backs against the wall, you need to play all your cards now, even your hidden cards. You need to bring them out and play them right now because you are one game from being eliminated from the tournament that you have dominated for years at this point.
There is the Nila. We asked for it. Does Targamas lock the Senna? They do. This combo that was so effective in the quarterfinals that absolutely eviscerated
oh my god, this
the
is
option.
genius.
But of course, you're on red side. There's a counter pick for support available. Camillus was debating the Blitzbang,
was
which would
genius.
have been really nasty to double squishiness. Pike, not a bad option there as well. There's a few...
Come on, we know you're going to lock in the Nautilus.
I know, I'm living in hope. It's locked. Alas. But of course, Kai'Sa Nautilus is an old school pairing. You set up the plasma super well for the Kai'Sa, so it's not a bad combo at least.
I love what KC have so far. Last time, Targamas took Senna in his hands in the game versus Wildcats over in the quarterfinals. He topped the damage charge with 17,000 damage on the Senna. Nowhere near any other member from KC. Absolute domination for the KC bot lane. That's exactly what they need at this point. They need to take down Jezu and Camillus. They have back-to-back taken them down on 2 games, game 1 and game 3. Jezu and Camillus have come out on top, and it seems to be a very sore spot in the early game for KC. But now with this bot lane, with the Nila, with the Senna, where they have succeeded against Wildcats, they're bringing it back.
And a lot of analysts on Twitter, some of the more famous coaches, have been pretty vocal about saying, look, Nila is really, really good, especially if you get out of lane having not fallen behind, because you just get free XP, you are nuts at 2 items, your AD scaling is absolutely obscene.
So is Senna's?
Oh, yeah, exactly. So if you get the opportunity to get through that, and of course, having the Senna means you still have range in the bot lane and someone who's still happy to trade out and deal with the fact you don't have a ranged AD carry. The issue, as with some of these guys, a bit like a Samira as well, if you stall out at 2 items, if you don't get those items, you fall behind, you can struggle. You kind of go in and die.
Okay, I'm going to play the stats person right here. Odeya, if you're listening, I love you.
Yeah, I got a little
Targamas
message.
has 100% win rate on the Senna.
Oh!
You know why? Because she has
Yes.
only 1 game.
Okay. I would say it was all time. I don't think so. But it's quite high.
All time at EMEA Masters.
Yeah,
There you go.
I did get a little message of having said stats don't matter, and I got pinged by our stats person. Odeya was like, "Are you sure about that?" I was like, "I am in so much trouble with production. They're going to do me in." Apparently, I'm making enemies of people today. I get in trouble with lore. Can I get in trouble with stats? This is the last you hear from me, guys. I'm done. This is it. Still.
So,
Yes. What have you got for me?
I sneak peeked,
Oh, gee.
and Seiken's Rise, could have been Rise's Seiken, one or the other, both fit. 30 wins, 15 losses on the champion. Absolute
Pretty good.
monster.
That's a lot of games to be playing as well. He is so well known for this champion. And in a game like this, where all levity aside, all little looks behind the curtain aside, Team GO have come into this series as the underdogs. Understandably so. Understandably so. This is Karmine Corp, and a Karmine Corp that slammed the defending champion Wildcats, who were looking so very, very scary. And then GO come in after a pretty risky, pretty rough best of 5
Honestly,
against
it was
City.
boring, right?
Yeah,
Because
it was.
Wildcats was on the side of the bracket with Geo, with SK Prime, with K-Corp. And you're like, wait, I wanted to see Wildcats with KC over at Montpellier in the finals. Those are the 2 big bosses. And the fact that KC won over Wildcats so heftily, you're like, okay, who stops them now? But Geo are putting such a great fight, and it shows so much of the development of the team over through planes, finishing 3rd over in the LFL, now facing back-to-back EMEA Masters champions, LFL champions, you name it, they've won it, this team. And now they're standing 1 game away from beating the absolute raid boss that no other team has ever in the history of EMEA Masters been able to take down in a best of.
So many times has Team GO been the bridesmaid, not the bride. So many times has every LFL team been the bridesmaid, not the bride when
They've
it comes to
tried.
Karmine Corp.
Yep.
Especially here at EMEA Masters.
Oh, Linces has been spotted. Synchro is right behind him.
Synkrov, though, don't find too much, but that will force people away at least for now. Linces still hanging around, aware that Synkrov might just face check. This one will throw out the flail. A little bit of that passive stack, but of course, well, now
Wow,
it's
it's
mounted up.
great.
Wow.
it's like medieval times
Yeah.
where people get a mount. One of them has a metal horse, the other one has a bear, I think it is.
It's a
on this.
boar.
Yeah.
Is it, no, it's a bear. This is a bear
it's
in this one. Yeah, it's fair. Yeah.
And you try to like fight it out.
I prefer the Poro person.
But it's like a noodle fight. They're literally just poking each other.
You say that. I have seen Sejuani passive damage. That thing is no joke.
Oh, here we go again.
All right, here we go again. A little bit of jousting. I think Kled does it better. He's got the ability.
We're wasting so much time here. Both of these junglers have a whole quadrant left.
blame them,
look,
though?
look at Caboshot in the top lane. He's proxying. At this point, he's like,
Right.
where is my jungler to dive this horn?
Can you blame them with how important bot lane has been? With how important this game is? Both junglers say, look, my farm is irrelevant. I am here to ensure... Actually, that's a...
Oh, here he is again.
Oh, we got my days.
He's still there.
Caboshot is recalling in the enemy Raptor pit, by the way. Synchrof is just going for the Invader Wolves. Does have the shove, so we'll have the Senna and the Neela coming up to assist, and Linz just has to give this up. Alongside what looks like to be his blue buff, I wonder whether he has to try and cross-map, or whether he's even going to get the opportunity.
I don't think he can at this point because Caboshot has already backed. Picked up the pickaxe, and deep it back onto the tops of the map. So what Synchrof can do here is just run it through mid lane, go to his top quadrant of the map, where he has the stronger Renekton. So all in all, it was a little bit of a waste of time, if you will, from the junglers, but Linces is the one that falls behind because Tukui had burned his entire mana bar. Botlane cannot contest push, so he had no teammates left. Fortunately for him, he will get a blue buff for his troubles, but that's all there's left. He has to play towards the top side of the map. Now, Casey, no, but this Sejuani will end up towards the top side of the map, so bot lane is free for potential ganks.
Oh.
So is mid lane, but Tekken doesn't have much mana to participate in that.
And of course, Targamas has been stuck in lane a lot, and for the first time in a little while, we see him go for a roam mid, but this time on a center of all champions, and gives himself additional soul. And I do want to call that out as well, that Targamas did get into that wolf camp that was stolen away, and did take away those souls that were left behind. And that is a huge, huge moment, of course, because you know, this is what G2 used to do with the Senna when they were absolutely stomping with that champion, is they used to just have that Senna trail the jungler, get all the souls from the jungle, and steamroll and supercharge Senna up to those high amounts of souls super early into a game.
Now again, as you mentioned, it's all about that bot lane. Kalist, very angry B right there.
It's been an angry B all tournament.
He has been an angry B all tournament for sure. It's fueling him to do even better, and right here, Targamas and Kalist on this particular combo, the Neela and the Senna, they absolutely dominated Wildcats. We mentioned it earlier on. Right now, it's all about the push, right? You're playing the double ranged versus a Nautilus and a Kai'Sa. Extremely short range that you carry from the likes of Kai'Sa, of course. And yes, the lane becomes a kill lane later on when you can actually throw the Kai'Sa into the backline with the Nautilus ultimate hitting. You can get your jungler up in there. But so far, so good. I feel like we won't see a lot of aggression coming out through K-Corp. We won't see any cheeky ganks happening in the early phases of the game, because you do have what it takes. You do have the ever-scaling with the Ryze, with the Neela, with the Senna. You will forever scale in this game, especially in the likes of Senna that can shove souls all game long. So, play it slow, play for objectives. Linces, only level 4 versus level 6 Ryze.
Yeah.
Second, that's a flash if he needs it.
Kind of punished earlier on into the game, of course, and that did definitely cost some of that early farm in the game down that little bit. It's been unusual. Synchrof, to be honest, has been...
Oh, level 6 on
lackluster.
Kalist.
Yeah, he's there desperately early because, of course, it's Neela. Flash on in. They're going for this anyway. But remember, still the opportunity for an apotheosis. They've gone pretty deep. Last Embrace lands. Pull back on the Camilius, who's going to be in so much danger. Taken desperately low, and this ring run down. That's a kill of first blood to Targamas Senna. How much further can they go? I don't think they'll get anything more, but that's just beautiful. Kalist gets the ult, gets level 6, and gets first blood.
Linces has fallen so incredibly behind to Synchrof, which is not something we could say for the rest of the games in this particular series. And I feel like Linces needs to focus a little bit more onto farming and trying to play catch up. Level 6 on Synchrof, level 4 on the Sejuani. The second you hit level 6 on the Sejuani, this is where she becomes extremely dangerous. You walk up in lane, Sejuani is there, you're dead. So the fact that Geo actually uber forced that play over in the bot side where Neela was level 6. She has flash and she has cleanse.
Massive, man.
If that doesn't work, there's heal on the Senna. There's double heal on the Senna from the Q and from the actual summoner. So
And apotheosis heals.
a little bit too overforced from the side of Geo. Now Synchrof can do whatever he wants. Not for too long, because Seiken was actually TPing, doesn't have a lot of mana left in his kit, but so doesn't Tukui, who can't help his jungler contest his Raptors.
That's been an issue, right? That's 2 invades where Lince has been left in 1vx scenarios because the pressure in lanes has been there consistently for Karmine Corp in every single lane. Cabochard has been proxy farming, but now might be no joke. No, Ragnar missed the reactivation. Call of the Forge God goes wide. Maybe this god is about to be replaced by a new Pantheon, or in this case, an old one. Karmine Corp have been on top of Mount Olympus a few times to this tournament, that's for sure, and they are the old gods of this place. They have been the ones that everyone else has looked to emulate. And ain't that the truth of Greek history?
Now that is OG KC.
I know.
Targamas topside with the Senna, playing together with Synchro, establishing vision onto the river. Kalist!
Back to Kui, desperately low, rooted in place, the last embrace, but the turnaround is pretty good. Kalist still staying alive, to Kui forced away, Dawning Shadow! Not quite enough.
Meanwhile,
Yeah,
Synchro did his job. Secured that Rift Herald.
great job.
So much pressure on the map from this bot lane. Again, Kalist and Targamas onto the Nila Senna combo. So much pressure. You've got so much room. Senna creates room for you to play around because Kalist onto this Nila is also extremely short range. It's like another... Think about it. If you guys haven't seen a lot of Nila, you must have seen some Samira. It's extremely similar, the playstyle between the two AD carries. You want to be in the heart of the fight. You basically have an Orianna ult built into your ult. So you want to be hitting as many as possible, as many as you can that are around you, right?
The big difference really is that Samira gets resets. Neela
does not.
Neela does not and gets heals for your team instead, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I prefer the resets on my Katarina.
Yeah, I should have known really. How are you finding Katarina at the minute?
I don't, I'm playing TFT.
I knew it. I knew it. I was like, have you ever played Katarina? I was like, no, I've been playing Teamfight Tactics.
There you go. There is Katarina and Teamfight Tactics. There you go. She sucks there too.
The pain of a scorned Katarina maid. Moving on swiftly before I cause trouble, undue pain and misery in this cast.
Now,
yes.
This has been 3,000 gold that KC has sneaked into this game. It's a very slow game, if you will, but the objectives, the objectives have actually gone all KC's way. The Rift Herald that hasn't even been popped, which is gonna snowball the lead further in the gold department. The first Dragon that went over to KC. Again, all these leads were generated by the bot lane. Kalist and Targamas playing that 2v3, getting the kill, which resulted in the Dragon, which then resulted in Targamas roaming towards the top side of the map since they're the strongest. Synchro getting that top lane Herald, whilst they're also pressuring mid lane. It has all been about the bot lane snowballing and then roaming around the map and getting control all over. For now, Gio, they're pulling a Fnatic bush, but they have been spotted.
Ooh, Seiken has to flash. Potentially important, but is importantly not caught. Reminder as well, Kalist has got the first iron of the game, but maybe that won't matter. His target was forced to flash, stays alive, Synchros with a 3-man knockup. Teleports come flying on through. And Gio on the retreat, Camilius misses the dredge line. Flash slice from Cabochard, can't get any closer. Bellows breath into the searing charge, trying to buy some space, and Camilius dies to Targamas.
Woo! What a chain of events right there from KC. They just pull the trigger on the teleport for Cabochard. The second they see that Renekton coming into this fight, everyone just flashes out from GO. And they were catching Targamas on the side. Of course, he does have a shotgun on him, so it would have been a pretty good catch. And look at that Aliyah wall coming in from Tukui to stop any further engage from KC. But the second the wall is down and Cabochard finds his way in, he just throws them away. And Camillus has to wrap around this side so that KC focus him and then they let the rest disengage from GO. Now GO are slowly bleeding. That is a pre-14 tower in the bot lane falling. 4 tower bladings already in the pockets of Targamas and Kalist. This bot lane is actually pulling so far ahead. And again, when it comes to Senna, sees an ever-scaling carry. Last time we saw it on Targamas, he actually built Eclipse. He went for full damage. So he is going to be actually a threat coming into this game.
Of course, you know, it got close. That was nearly some great picks there, but it just wasn't quite the ball. It wasn't quite in range. They had the summer advantage. Seiken flashes one hook. Targamas gets out of the CC on the other one with a good flash. And we're left with the Dragon stacking beginning for Karmine Corp. Herald drop bot lane. Gold lead very much in their advantage. And this just feels like an inversion of Game 3. Blue side apparently pretty overpowered in this series, coming out with early advantages every single game, and the items beginning to stack in nice and early for Karmine Corp. We talked about the collect before that last fight. Rod of Ages in early for Seiken as well.
Cabochard establishing some dominance. His Renekton has been actually extremely dominant.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, genuinely.
Even in the games that they lose, he's actually always ahead in gold. 1.1k in this particular instance. And Targamas and Kalista are gonna take that bot lane tower, pre-14, every single tower plating, cast in. Kaching for the bot lane, 1.9k up. Okay, and I know it's not the most representative because Nautilus, of course, is not farming. He's not taking kills. So he's fallen 2,000 gold behind, but Cabo shot.
Cone gets Camilius into lane a little bit unexpectedly. They get so much damage as the CC's gone.
Great stuff right there. 400 gold for Jezu. He cashes in onto this Crocodile. This is most likely, it is definitely an AD Kai'Sa right here, especially since you have a lot of AP ratios coming in from Talia, Sejuani, and Ornn with the top side of the map. This is going to be a hard-hitting Kai'Sa. If she's managed to stick, if she manages to get into the backline, Jezu can cause a lot of problem, extremely similar to how a Vayne would play a lot of these fights, apart from the fact that Vayne cannot fly through the backline. So she has a little bit better access on the Kai'Sa for
Dodge
Jezu.
roll, very potent ability. Every gamer can tell you that one. Circle every time. Anyone who doesn't use dodge roll circles. Weird, Synchro. Dodge the dredge line, but that is a really good wall. Synchro left in a desperate position. Shoved on back. There is just no way out. Too deep. On the other side, though, there's a bit of a fight in the picture-in-picture as Ragnar is running away from Seiken. Gets rooted down. We'll try and turn that one around. Throws out that volcanic rupture. Has got a blast cone and yeets his way to safety.
Midland's being pushed, so Kui's around. Caboshot still doesn't have the ultimate.
Yeah.
1 second for it to come back up. Kalinsa's shadowing. He's
Kalist.
got Kalist.
Oh, just out of range of the dredge line. So close on so many of these CC link-ups, and Karmine Corp have managed to just about get away from them. Geo beginning to fight back, but of course I'm still looking at the goal at the top of the screen and going, Karmine Corp still in command. They are managing to survive these punches pretty well.
Now the thing here is that this Karmine Corp composition hangs in the balance. You do have 2 extremely squishy carries over in the bot lane. And the top side of your map is more tanky, especially since Seiken is also very tanky onto the rise. Now if you can manage to land an ultimate either on Targamas or Kalist from the likes of Nautilus, Sejuani, and Ornn, these 2 guys will fall very, very quickly, especially with Kai'Sa flying into the backline as well. But so far, it seems like the sense of the series, it feels like one of the both teams get a little bit complacent and they're like, it's fine, we're scaling, but how much are you willing to lose on the map before you pull the trigger? A lot of your key items are completed right here if you're Geo.
Yeah.
1.5 almost minutes for 145 for the next dragon to come up, and it is going to be soul point for KC. You cannot afford to let this go, because if they take soul point, you're gonna have to fight them in 5 minutes, whether you like it or not.
Need to keep our eyes a little bit on whether particularly Kalist gets towards that second item. A kill onto Kui would be really lovely. Gets a seismic shove away. Will flash on out of the crash down, but still that summoner blown. Teleport from Seiken, of course, he is a rise, so we'll be able to use his Realm Walk when that comes off cooldown. Should be up, I think, in time for this dragon, just about. Have that opportunity, particularly play around that bot side if he's looking to shove on in.
1 minute, of course, for the dragon too. Synchro just completed his first item. It's going to be the Even Shroud
Don't blame him.
on the Rel. You see someone, they take
More
a
damage.
butt ton of damage.
And again, you could Magnus Storm, so you can do that to quite a lot of people at once.
So even if you die and you manage to get a 4-mana ult, it's still pretty good for your team. Of course, that 40-second timer is where you usually choose to put that Shelly down just to get a little bit more vision over in the mid lane. If you get the tower as well, like they did, even better, just to move straight into that river for setting up for the dragon. Now you see a lot of pings coming in from Geo. They're pinging wards that they have behind KC, potentially for a flank TP.
You mentioned it before, second item's not quite complete. They find a dredge but it's onto Caboshot. How important is that? They're going to big amount of CC. Just about survives. He's out. Surely. No. Jezu gets the kill. The Acathian Rain burns him down. Now they're trying to survive the back end of the sync. Make it work. Wait. Watch Jezu trying to fire off as much as they can. It's a 2-for-1 right now. But look, Seiken, Kalist doing their best to stay alive. Massive 2-man shattering strike. Brings him on down. But wait, the seismic shove gets on top of the Neela. But Seiken and Synchro doing their best to ensure they can still run through the rest of Team GO. 4 for 3, but Dragon Soul still secure. So point, secured by Karmine Corp.
And only a god with a horn is left from the side of GO. Cannot contest this dragon. They're gonna take the 3rd one in a row. Synchro for life, Seiken alive. They have more than enough damage and a smite. And Camilius engaging right here onto the Renekton. They're throwing everything in the kitchen sink and Cabochard almost gets out. Jezu dives into the backline. He is the carry that they need right now. Not only kills off the Renekton that was trying to escape, but also takes down Targamas in return. But that was a beautiful re-engage coming in from Synchro. Catch Jezu on the way out, and once Jezu is down onto the Skystar, there's just not enough damage left between the On and the Talia to take down two tanky members from the side of KC.
Seiken on his infamous drive comes
2-0-3.
away with a team fight victory. Yes, it was close, and credit to Geo for pouncing while the item completions weren't there. They get some critical gold onto Jezu. 3-1-1, doing their best. He gets rid of Targamas. Kalist falls as well, but it's not just the bot lane you've got to be afraid of. Seiken beginning to make his name known in this series. Still stacking those two core items in the rower, in the Seraph's Embrace. It's not quite become that, of course, still the, I never remember its untransformed name anymore. Archangels.
Archangel.
Before it becomes Seraph's Embrace. Will nearly be, there will certainly be there for the Soul and for Baron, and that means that Rise is still yet to get as scary as it can be.
And you see GR are slowly starting to run out of options. 3 minutes, 50 seconds is all they have between that Soul goes down for KC. 50 seconds for the Baron as well. KC are already in. They're setting down their vision. You see Synchro and Kalist are pushing in together. They're going to take control of that bush as well with the control wood. And you're going to need Ragnar to actually face check for you. He's the tankiest member from the side of GO. And he, unfortunately for him, has to be the one face checking to try and get some vision control back for the side of GO. Luckily for them, they have two tanks that can actually do that. But their other tank, Linces, is towards the bottom of the map together with Tukui. Tukui does have the TP. KC are going to take a tower for free towards the top side of the map. The Angry Bee is going to be shown again from Kalist. He wants that game 5, and he's pretty much on his way to taking that.
You can see that this was the option. They think, well, we're going to lose that top lane tier 2 anyway. Let's at least trade for something, get this bounty gold into Takui's inventory, get ourselves a tower. It's been 4-0 for the moment. 3 of those outer turrets falling pretty early on to the game in favor of Karmine Corp. And they are looking like they want to bring us to silver scrapes to prove that they are not down and out in this series. And they're certainly not down and out in this game. They have come back with a vengeance. Baron started.
Baron started, Linces is around. He does have a chance to steal, does have the flash if you want to jump into the pit, but how do you get out? KC are not even going to chance it.
Syncroft gets the slowdown. Takui gets so much work on the target at the back end of it. Has to flash out. Massive damage. Down onto Cabochard. Gets him. They've gone too deep. Karmine Corp throw out a sad beat. Kaliska still looks to come and re-engage, but he's been pretty low. And Takui is doing so much work from this Raptor pit. But Seiken gets one back. They get the Dreads out of the Rise. Flashing forwards to get even more damage. And Kaliska gets that one. It's a 2-for-1 right now, but the damage back is still pretty obscene. And Takui, that range advantage is pretty nasty to work with. Jezu, still with the ultimate, can still look to be a threat.
I'm just going to say, Synchro is looking still for Takui.
Wait,
The Rise ult, there's 2 members.
Taken, gonna go in, that's an ult back in. He's got very, very, very deep, but they still get it. Seiken on the rampage, and he will not be denied. He will not be defeated. This is the OG Karmine Corp member screaming, I deserve to go to finals again.
On his legendary Rise, Seiken slaps a big fat no on Geo's face as they are going to be taking down that Baron. Let's look at this fight again. Look at Takui's position because it's very important. But what Geo hadn't thought of is that there's a 6th member playing for KC, and it comes out right now. The second the Raptors spawn, Takui loses so much of his projectile damage. The Raptors are blocking everything. They keep resetting and moving back, which means that his positioning behind the wall, which was genius, got broken apart by some Raptors wearing a KC jersey.
Incredible, and then the Realm Wall afterwards. Yes, you nearly get it, but he's just so tanky.
Archangel's coming through with the shield as well. So beefy on the Rise, and Geo should have just let it go. Move back, try again. Again, the overextension that we talked about a lot when they don't weigh their fights properly comes in on this one. I feel like they got the best end of their bargain in this particular fight, but they ended up overextending, going down to Seiken's ultimate, and then KC took everything.
Roa fully stacked, Seraph's online, stopwatch, and a needlessly large rod. And then you look elsewhere on the map and you go, that is a lot of gold. You look at the top of the screen and you go, that's a lot of gold. 20 seconds till no, that's a big pick up. Jezu's deleted. Now the ult comes across the other side of Seiken. Remember, has no flash, but he just unleashes. Does so much work staying alive for now. Linz is flashing away, trying to stay alive. Has got the Radiant Virtue healing him up. A double kill to Jezu. And now the jungler and AD carry it down, you can maybe think about denying the soul.
Oh boy, let's see if Geo are gonna just walk in right there. Seiken does have the backup of Cabochard. Cabochard with flash, with ultimate. Seiken, full HP bar right there. He's gonna TP back into the fight. You do have Targamas as well. He's dishing out so much damage. Has a rapid fire, has the Eclipse. He's actually equipped for this fight. There are no ultimates on the side of Geo apart from that Nautilus ult. And where is Camille's gonna choose to put it down? You cannot see them. They're in the shroud, so you can't hit them with the Nautilus ult. KC are gonna fight this.
Curse of the black mist. Maybe it'll be a curse of the blue wall. Camo shot. Taken up, gets the backside, gets a massive.
Oh my God!
Still goes down. They finally get them back, but that will still be a 1-for-1 right now. Dragon going down, trying to find the robot behind the scenes. That's
No
gonna
way.
be very deep.
No way!
Seiken doing his best. Targus gets the root. Seiken continues to free fire. Seiken continues to throw overload after overload, and the systems are fried. Karmine Corp's mid laner is electric in this game.
Seiken on his legendary rise. Game one, it was the very first ban Geo threw on the table. It was that rise. Backs against the wall for KC. Blue man comes out to complement the blue wall. And KC are looking more than equipped to take us to Silver Scrapes.
Even then, they still lose the soul, and it's not like Geo are going down without a fight. Jezu 7-2-2. He's desperately strong now. Kalisk goes forward. I don't know how much he wants it. Apotheosis! He has made a name for himself this tournament, hasn't he? Manages to kill off that important carry. Takes himself to Godhood to join himself along that age-old pantheon. They'd love to get to finals. They'd love to do it with this new rookie AD carry. And it's not just Seiken, is it? He dies for it, but he does it in style.
What an absolute madman. There were no objectives to be taken. There was no Baron. There was no Dragon.
Just
There was no
pride.
Soul.
Just pride.
It was more like, hey, you demolished me last time in lane. I do not forget.
Georgia, look at the Rise infantry for me.
Ah, beautiful. There's a death card.
It is
There's a very nice red hat.
It's
Actually, the hat is purple.
purple. Yeah, the underneath is red.
The background is red. You're right.
I was expecting a little bit more in-depth thoughts.
Okay. Wow! So Seiken has equipped himself with a lot more ability power.
That's incredible. What does that do on a Rise?
Well, the
Rep.
spells do scale with a lot of
No,
AP.
really?
So by purchasing
know that.
raw AP, which also multiplies a percentage of your AP already
yes,
and
yes.
amplifies that, means more damage for the Rise.
Genius.
There you go. There's your full in-depth analysis of a death card purchase.
It's like, I'm British, and that was probably too much sarcasm for me.
I learned it from you guys.
We may have taught it too well. I'm sorry. To all those out there who have to deal with Georgia on the day-to-day, it's our fault.
It's their fault. I'll remember that one.
Oh boy, I've given her a get-out-of-jail-free card. That's a mistake, I think. But anyway, we've got a minute and a half until Baron. 2.5 until potentially Soul again. Karmine Corp in control of this game, but of course, Geo haven't been without a few punches back of their own. 3 items and an ornament in for Jezu. They can survive the onslaught, maybe, just maybe they can carry it, but it's just been so hard. You kill Kalisk, Seiken's there to pick up the slack.
I think at this point it's so impossible to kill Seiken. He's so tanky. The Arcane just shield pops up, and if that wasn't enough, he still has a stopwatch in his inventory alongside a flash. So how in the world do you get on top of a level 17 Rise that is so tanky with just pure HP stats? I mean, Jezu has been doing fantastically, don't get me wrong, but if you dive in the backline to catch this Seiken, he's just gonna one-shot you.
I just saw some blue numbers pop up with over 1,000 damage. A spell! Maybe this is a moment, but Jesus! Camille's taken desperately low, he's down, he's out. Syncroft's trying to stay alive, flashes in onto Jezu, who's still hopping away. Syncroft so low, not down, into the curse of time, Mr. Cocky going, Jezu is dead! Seiken gets on him, roots him in place, and throws him to room prison.
And KC are gonna march forward right here. They do have the wave in the mid lane,
Run walk.
35 seconds.
Oh.
Ooh, Tukur's gonna get out of dodge.
Needed it.
With that wave as well. Bot lane wave pushing, top lane wave pushing, mid lane wave pushing for KC. It's full blue across the map, full blue minions raging into Geo's base. And KC are gonna take it slow. They're gonna crush in the minions under the towers. They still have a soul to attend to, 55 seconds. And they wanna set up for it, but first, let them take a bite of that purple womb. It's gonna be much easier to push further down the line. I mean, I don't think they needed 11,000 gold for the lead in Geo. They might play a last card right here. Lintas, he can't even get close. Look what, it's the raid boss that arrived. How do you get past him?
That is a very scary moment. Linz is desperately trying to get close enough to flash on. It is just being held. He's down.
That pained me to watch.
He tried. He really did. You can't blame him. It was a Hail Mary, but not a rosary big enough in the world to make that one work.
And now, you've got bot lane pushing. You've got mid lane pushing with Baroned Up minions. The top lane's going to slow push as well. And there's also a dragon. So there's 3 lanes of waves that Geo need to dispatch before the Baroned Up minions start pushing into their lanes. Sorry, into their base. And you also are giving away for free a soul to KC. And I feel like Geo are going to play the last card in their base. They're going to wait for KC to make their move inside the base, potentially underneath a tower, use it as a 6th member for themselves to try and make a play, but it feels like a very KC-sided game all the way from the beginning to the end. 13,000 gold difference right there. And these are usually the gold differences that we see when a Nexus is about to fall, when you've taken everything. KC have not even broken inhibitor towers.
No, they haven't. In this game, this series has always been about bot lane, it feels like. And yes, Kalist and Targamas early on getting that kill. They have been good, but you have to turn your eyes for once to this mid lane towards Saken, who pulls out the rise early. Makes it stick as Linsis goes wide. It was a bit desperate, that one, and the ice is melting pretty fast this time around. Permafrost, perhaps a misnomer this game. Synchron Cook, but I don't think he's a critical target. They're trying to make something happen. Call the Forge got across just the Nautilus, but they're dead. Saken arrives, a Realm Warp in, begins to overload the backline. One Smengel's spell, Flux spells half of Takui's health bar. The wall is decent to try and blow zone off.
Oh, Saken
For a moment, they get a hook into the backline. The Apotheosis go. Kalist desperately trying to stay alive. Does so, gets 3! Targamas claims a 4th, and Saken will run Jezu back to the fountain. There's no way out.
KC have done it. KC are pushing us into a 5th game.
You know what song we're queuing up. It begins with Silver, it ends with Scrapes. And one of them's getting a little more scraped than the other. We're battered, we're bruised. And we're going to game 5.
Oh, look at the reactions from Saken as well. In the meantime, he's like, yeah, baby, that's my rise. You ban it or you get punished for it, and they absolutely did. Geo did not have an answer for that bot lane, even though it was shown in the game versus Wildcats. It wasn't a secret strat for KC. The fact that they pulled it out on a 3-0, it means that it wasn't any secret strat that they had anyway. And now, backs against the wall, the Legendary Rise comes out, the Nila Senna comes back for KC. Now, in perspective, I'm worried for KC, and I'll explain why. Every team has won on blue side.
It's 4 blue wins, yeah.
And because Geo lost, they have side selection. Every time they've chosen blue. And this is where it starts becoming worrying for KC, because even though blue is their color, now they have to win on red. And no team has been able to do this in the series.
And I'll throw a counterpoint out there, because mentality-wise, you just lose game 4. You were series point up as Geo. You are going as Karmine Corp, the EMEA Masters team, the LFL team to so many fans. How many Karmine Corp fans have we seen around Twitter and the KCX events and all of those things? And you are second fiddle. You know that in your mind. You're playing that underdog, and you've got that weight of expectation and fandom in some ways against you. You are a team that has struggled to get past the semifinals, struggled to live up to those ceilings you've got, and now you are into a game 5 when you could have won the series, and it is in such emphatic fashion that you lose. That is a hard place mentally. It really is.
I mean, when you don't have the expectation to win the series and you take K-Corp to 5 games, it's still a huge achievement, right? And let's remind people, they took SK Prime to 5 games on a reverse sweep and won on red side for Geo. So they're still coming through that momentum. They know what works for them. Now they need to do it one more time on a side that they've won twice in a row. Can KC win on red?
You know exactly what's coming up next. It's game 5. You know what song's coming. Sing along. Prepare yourselves. Silver Scrapes, we'll see you for game 5.